Welcome NFL 2023 Draft Watchers. This is T signing in and thanks for joining myself and my illustrious co-host Davis. Also joining us today is the Gridiron Crew. Welcome Josh, and need we not forget to include our infamous, against the spread, betting pointers and props expert, none other than Sirag.
What's going on? Thanks for including us today.
Ladies, hope everyone is well. And yes, thanks for letting us join in today.
No problem. Anytime boys. We will have the pleasure of Sirag joining us weekly in the fall once the regular season starts up. At that time, he will try to help you parlay some of your hard-earned cash into some bragging rights. But enough inflating Sirag's ego and onto bigger and better things like today's show. On the agenda is the who's who on the draft board, which kind of sounds like the Marvel comics that I used to read as a kid. We will also look at who you should be looking at drafting for Dynasty and upcoming fantasy leagues. So let's get started.
Welcome to What's Cooking on the Gridiron with your hosts T and Davis. Join us as we chat about fantasy football and cook up and mix up the latest trending food and cocktails.
Good day everyone, Davis signing in. To start this session up, let's review our original QB recommendations from March. Our posting was prior to the combine and all the chatter about the new QBs. But before we provide an update, let's review. I remember T spouting off about who he thought was the best QB selections. I distinctly remember you only wanted 2 QBs. I wrote it down here somewhere. Here it is, I quote. If you need a QB in your dynasty league, then either draft Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. End of story. There are other good ones that will get drafted, but for dynasty leagues, unless you have roster room, then I only see Young or Stroud becoming starters in the near future. So, T, do you still stand by that statement?
Definitely. Even though I love AR and think Anthony will be the next bigger and better Cam Newton. I still think your best bet for a usable QB, and we are talking about QBs that we can put on the roster and use this year, I am sticking with Young and CJ. For dynasty leagues, if you have bench room, by all means draft AR and the brown banana eating machine, will Levis.
I love that video of him stuffing his face with brown bananas that should only be used to make banana bread. And he is a beast with that arm of his. Did you see the post of his throws to the end zone while still on his knees? Crazy.
See, that's the thing. I do kinda like the moxie he has. I gotta say he's a little unhinged for doing the brown banana eating video, but I like that sometimes. I prefer my QBs to be a little more buttoned up, but I do like the little bit of moxie. I really like Baker for that.
Okay, if we're going to talk moxie, then we should be talking Joey B.
Yeah, he's just got effortless moxie, he's just straight up cool like that. I feel sometimes it is not as natural for Will. I don't know, but I appreciate that moxie attempt.
I would love Levis to go to the Titans so he can just suck against the Colts.
Well, he definitely has an arm and that is why he will fit into a team like your Colts.
I don't want to see Will Levis on the Colts. He's just a crazy doppelganger of Jameis Winston. Like who the fuck wants that? The Titans can take Will Levis. They need a QB and Malik is definitely not the guy.
Well, it will definitely matter where he and the other young franchise QBs land.
True. So the Panthers and Texans, both who need QBs, will probably draft Young and C first and second. So, when the fight is over for pick 1 and 2, who do we have left? The teams that need QBs are Colts at pick 4, Titans who have pick 11 and Tampa Bay with pick 19. So how do you see this playing out on draft day?
I originally stated when the Jets and Raiders needed QBs that I thought they should look for free agents. I liked Garoppolo in Vegas and Carr or Rodgers in New York. Well, I was correct with Garoppolo and apparently Rodgers is heading to the Jets. Carr looks like he will be an okay fit in New Orleans. So with the teams left, the Titans will either have to trade up to beat the Colts or just keep Tannehill for another year. If they don't make a move, then I assume the Cardinals will draft outside linebacker, Will Anderson, and the Colts get the pick of AR or Will Levis.
I think the Colts have to trade up or risk getting jumped and then they're stuck with whomever is the 4th quarterback. And maybe they don't care.
They have nobody on the roster though, so I think they were kind of banking on this draft. Arizona is the pick before and I just think the Cardinals are crazy not to trade back knowing that somebody's going to want a QB in second. I feel like they can stay in the top 10 and get another second round pick out of it or something. So hopefully Colts move up and get the QB that they want.
I originally liked Will Levis over AR in Indy. The Colts needs a young franchise QB and have to stop replaying the strategy of another retread QB. Why do I say I originally liked Will over AR with the Colts? I mean, I still do, but only because the head coach, Shane Steichen, and OC Jim Bob Cooter have a tendency to favor pocket passing QBs, or at least that is what I have read. But kiddies, don't believe everything you read nowadays. On Monday, I watched the interview of the Colts' new head coach Shane Steichen on the Pat McAfee show. He seems like a knowledgeable and passionate good guy, and he is a golfer, so hopefully in the off-season I can talk him into a round.
Apparently, he likes fly fishing too. So, with you being from the backwoods of a small town in Manitoba, you two will probably hit it off and you can teach him a thing or two about real fly fishing.
I am not sure about that. I missed those key lessons from my dad, who was a big fly angler. I was too busy cow tipping, but let us not digress. If I had to vote on who would be the Super Bowl champs this upcoming year based strictly on my impression of Coach Shane, then the Colts would be my team, and I think Pat would agree. Now realistically, Shane has some work to do with the new franchise QB position, who we all assume will be drafted in a few days. But I love his theory that you build your team off the QB and players that you have to work with rather than the system that has been in place previously.
And hopefully we'll be implementing the QB sneak that pissed off so many teams that they tried to get the play banned.
Definitely. So with that strategy in mind, do you go with someone who's a pocket QB like Will and start to rock and roll with big throws from the pocket? Or, and a big or here, do you draft Anthony Richardson and then base the offensive strategy around his style of play or his skill set rather than molding him into more of a pocket QB? Shane worked with Eagles QB Jalen Hurts, which could be the style of player that AR could emulate.
I have him ranked as my fantasy QB1 by a rookie this year. I don't think he will be drafted first overall, but by time the season is finished, I think he will be the overall QB1 for the rookie class, which would be a steal for someone at a later pick. But only if he gets drafted by teams that are going to play him. He has to start. And if he does, then he will be the #1 fantasy rookie quarterback for any dynasty league. And a coach like Shane goes a long way for a quarterback like AR. It makes just too much sense for Richardson to not go to the Colts. Coach Shane handled a project like Jalen Hurts and made him the highest paid quarterback in the league. So essentially, the same thing with coaching AR, who is just a faster version of Hurts.
I was under the same impression that both Coach Steichen and Cooter were pocket passing QBs, so Will Levis would be the obvious pick over Anthony Richardson. And then there is the issue with his scouting report. AR needs development for the first year. I could see him possibly being drafted by Seattle. They are in the position with pick 5, and I can definitely see Anthony develop under the tutelage of Geno Smith.
I think sometimes these idiot talking heads online overanalyze everything. Like all these coaches have this system and this quarterback will never work. They don't take into consideration that coaches like Coach Shane are unbelievable coaches, and if they see someone with AR's skill set, they're gonna jump at every opportunity for him. But he is a definite project for sure.
A project that is going to be fabulous. But I agree that he needs good coaching like Coach Shane from the Colts. I am not sure where Anthony Richardson ends up being drafted, but someone needs to grab him for his potential.
Okay. It's going to be tough to pass on AR, but who's going to be drafted first? Is Bryce going to go first? Is CJ going to get passed up to the Colts?
Bryce being drafted by the Panthers is a done deal, and if Houston passes on CJ, then that is fine. But I am seeing that they are trying to pair him and Jackson together like all the other college duos that have paired up and have had success. So, I think Young and Stroud draft 1 and 2. Although, I hear some chatter about the Texans taking a defensive player.
Like, shut up. They are not passing on a QB.
And then we have Hendon Hooker. Possibly could be drafted to the Vikings because Kirk has only got 1 year left on his deal.
Okay, so, let's move on to wide receivers. The wide receiver class in the 2023 NFL Draft could possibly be the weakest at the position in half a decade, but that does not mean it is completely lacking talent.
I agree. I think this is the weakest position of the drafts. This might even be weaker than running backs.
I think teams find a lot of value in these types of wide receivers because there aren't any like clear-cut #1s. There's not going to be 6 receivers taken in the first round like last year.
Exactly. Coaches are going to count on their scouts. I don't think there's going to be as many as there have been in the past, but I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy-worthy players taken in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds of the NFL Draft.
And it may only seem like a weak position this year because we have been spoiled in the last 3 years. Almost a third of the 2022 top 30 wide receivers have been drafted in the last 3 years. So let us discuss some first-rounders that we like. Jackson Smith-Njigba should be able to post 120-plus targets if he remains healthy. In 2022 he was injury-riddled, but in 2021 he showed how he could be a WR1 as a rookie. His ability is that he will get the targets with or without another receiver, whereas I think the remaining WRs need teams where they lack target competition. And even with JSN, as good as he is, there is no one in this draft that is a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase.
I heard Joel Klatt report that both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave have told him that Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best player. He is the one that I like the most.
I think he is the one everybody likes the most.
He'll be a perennial 90 yards, 100 catch guy because he can run nasty. Besides JSN, who else?
I based my receiver rankings on the consensus of what teams these guys might end up being drafted to. Like Quentin Johnston. I heard perhaps he may go to the Chargers. If that is where he ends up, then he just got a top 5 quarterback throwing the ball to you.
Quentin Johnston from TCU is my second. He is a great player with all attributes, size 6 feet 4 inches and 215 pounds with great speed, good catch radius, and impressive after-catch skills. He reminds me of the likes of DK Metcalf. I also like Zay Flowers from Boston College. He has some great explosiveness, but like many players in this draft, there are concerns for his size and ball retention ability.
And then they're saying that Flowers could go to the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Chiefs are definitely drafting one of the top receivers, and that automatically makes them valuable. Who would not want Mahomes throwing to you all day long?
And way more value in dynasty leagues too for those guys.
I would love to see Jalen Hyatt, from Tennessee, go to the Chiefs. He's sick. T, who's the name that you like that we maybe haven't heard much about?
I would say Jordan Addison out of USC. He seems to be everyone's number 2, but the rankings seem to flip daily. I have seen him rank low and relatively up high around 4 on scouting reports. He is fast with good maneuverability. He gets good separation but needs to work on his ball retention. And then there is Josh Downs of NC. Again, great speed like Jordan with the ability to stop and change momentum. He reminds me of Tony. He is tough at 5 feet 10 inches and 175 pounds.
Yeah, he's someone that I'm sleeping on too. Those are the 5 for sure that are going to get drafted in the top rounds.
Okay, so we are now at the tight end position. Where do we start? Let's just say that tight ends in the draft take forever to develop. Although some may have an immediate impact, I do not see them being relevant enough to draft over our existing mediocre core of tight end options from ranks 10 plus. We might not see their potential right away, but this class of 2023 will have some of the top-ranked tight ends down the line in 2024, 2025, and beyond. I am just not willing to or desperate enough to draft them and hold them on my roster in Dynasty until then. But if you must, I would look towards Dalton Kincaid. If he is drafted on an offensive-minded team, then he could possibly be in the top 15 by the end of the season, which would be great in redraft leagues.
Well, I think it depends on the team. If Michael Mayer, Kincaid or Darnell Washington go to the Commanders, then they could be fantasy relevant right away.
The one thing I find with tight ends, especially in Dynasty, is that you may get a couple of good years out of them. Not many of them stick around as high production because it's just such a brutal position.
And that's something that factors in when I look at tight end drafts. That is why I like Mayer the most, because you will get the most long-term production out of him. He is a horse. A horse like Mark Andrews.
He's definitely the best all-around tight end. Kincaid will be the guy for the first year, but Mayer is the better player because he blocks.
They need to be able to do so much more than just catch. Tough to be a star in your first year.
Exactly, look at Kyle Pitts. Everyone thought he was going to be top. I think that in some years.
I mean, he's pretty good.
Is he?
Didn't he have 1,000 yards last year?
Last year? There's no way.
Well, maybe not 1,000, but somewhere up there.
I would be shocked if it was 700. I can think of one game he went over 100. Anyway, that's just it. Tight ends are hard to value.
I'm sure this goes without saying. When we see which teams these guys actually end up with, will make the difference.
Last up is running backs. Draft Bijan Robinson, especially if he lands with a team like Philly or the Bengals. If Bengals get to draft someone like Bijan Robinson, then it is thank you very much, Mixon. See you later. Carry on somewhere else.
Yeah, so we are all pretty aligned that Robinson is the runaway number 1.
He is my priority pick in Dynasty and redraft leagues. If he is drafted by Philly at pick 10, He will be the highest picked RB since Saquon Barkley in 2018 when he was drafted by New York Giants pick 2.
Well, there was a run the years before. Leonard Fournette at pick 4 and Christian McCaffrey at pick 8. Zeke was the year previous at 4 and Gurley at 10 in 2015. Pretty much the 4 years in a row there was running backs going in like the top 10 of round 1.
Bijan has speed, vision, skillful hands, and can break tackles. 1,580 rushing yards, 18 rushing TDs, 6.1 yards average, 19 receptions for 314 yards and 2 TDs. He physically visited only 2 teams, Philly and Tampa Bay at pick 19. If the Eagles do not take him after they let Sanders go, I would be surprised.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? He would be a top running back. He will not be just the number 1 rookie, he will be a top 5 pick RB in fantasy. They are not going to let Penny, Gainwell, and Scott, who are tier 5 or 6 RBs at best, be their only RBs.
His only downfall for initial impact would be pairing up with a team like Dallas where he plays beside Pollard.
The only team that I heard that might draft him, that would be pretty unfortunate, is the Lions?
What the fuck do they need him for? If he goes to there, then that's fucking stupid. But if he goes with Philly, that would be a nasty backfield.
The other RB that has some potential is Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. He has great hands and with the right team he could put up some decent PPR numbers.
Agreed. I think you can't overlook the track record of Alabama running backs as well. Gibbs is an Alvin Kamara. Great in the tackles. He can break runs, catches, and racks up points quickly, like 90-yard touchdowns. I also like Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. I think he might not be one of those top 3, but I just think his skill set is perfect for the pros. He is good in all phases, and he is an absolute tank.
You love tanks.
Absolutely. I think he's like an A.J. Dillon kind of guy who's not as solid but has a little more speed. I would rank him higher depending on where he goes.
I think him and Devin Achane from Texas A&M could both be RB2 right away if they go to the right situation.
Right. And a lot of teams are looking for those dual-punch RBs rather than just having their star running back with a backup. 2 studs, one that runs the ball and the other with some hands.
Who else? There are always some random rookie every year that just goes off for 1,000+ yards and 9 touchdowns, and I really hope it's Tank Bigsby.
He's from Auburn. There was a lot of talk about him. I saw him ranked 5 at one point in time, and then the next time I looked at the rankings, he wasn't even in the top 10. Where the hell did he go? He's not even listed there. I have a question mark by what happened to him. Did he get injured in the freaking combine and I missed it?
He is probably slow as fuck. So I think we agree there is about the top 4 RBs to look at for drafting. Thanks for having Josh and I in the chat today. It was fun. Let's do this shit again sometime soon.
Just remember that on draft day, crazy things happen. Everything that you have heard on social media tends to be smoke and mirrors from teams to hide draft intentions. We will review where everyone lands and what that impact will be for their fantasy and dynasty hopes. Now this section is not relevant to fantasy football, but I would be amiss if I didn't include players from Canada that will be drafted. Let's take a quick look at the Canadians' prospects. First up is Chase Brown. Chase is from London, Ontario. He is a running back at Illinois. His prospect grade is 6.12, which equates to a good backup with the potential to develop into starter. His draft projection is rounds 4 to 5. Next up is Chase's twin brother Sidney Brown. I find it crazy that 2 brothers will be in the same draft year. Sidney is a safety from Illinois. His prospect grade is 6.14, which equates to a good backup with the potential to develop into starter. His draft projection is rounds 2 to 3. There has been chatter about Sidney possibly being drafted by the LA Rams.
Another Canadian is offensive lineman Matthew Bergeron from Victoriaville, Quebec. He attends Syracuse and his prospect grade is 6.39. Matthew will eventually be plus starter. His draft projection is round 2. And another Quebec resident from Bromont. He is an offensive lineman from Eastern Michigan. His prospect grade is 5.80, which equates to an average backup or special teamer. His draft projection is round 5.
Next up is Tavius Robinson. He is from Guelph, Ontario. He is a defensive lineman from Ole Mississippi. His prospect grade is 6.18. He will be a good backup with the potential to develop into starter. His draft projection is rounds 4 to 5. Finally, we have Jared Wayne. His hometown is Peterborough, Ontario. He is a wide receiver from Pittsburgh. Good luck to all the Canadian prospects. We will be watching this week. This is T signing off, and always remember, the most valuable player on your team is the one who makes the most players valuable.
And this is Davis signing off. May all your fantasy football dreams come true.